What's up, y'all? This is Mr. Basketball Live, and I have a very special guest from NBA TV Canada, home of the Raptors, Akil Augustine. What's up, y'all? This is Mr. Basketball Live. What's up, y'all? Mr. Basketball.
What up, man? You good?
How you doing, man?
I'm blessed. I'm happy to be alive.
Honestly, thank you for doing the show. Very, very interesting. You're the only guy on NBA TV representing. You are the face of the Raptors. You're the face of OVO, Crown. You're everywhere. You're supporting the youth. I want to jump right in. How did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, how I got to Toronto was I'm born in Trinidad.
Okay.
Hopped over to New York for a bit. Came here because New York in the '80s is a little different.
Right.
So my family decided that it was best for me and my sister to come here in Toronto. And I think as a young man, without having your parents around to raise you, you very early, or I at least very early in life, discovered the kindness of strangers.
Right.
I feel like I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today if certain people just didn't pick up my cause and champion it for me.
Right.
And so I try to do that for other people, try to provide guidance and information to people who I feel don't have access to it.
Right.
And I try to lead by example. So I have a life's mission statement, and it is to be an example of joyous learning and growth.
Right.
And so I think that's that mission statement kind of gives me kind of a guiding principle of how to act, how to behave, and
Right.
how to go about achieving my goals.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is helping.
But how did you get to this TV point? How are you the guy
Okay.
on NBA TV?
Well, that's a different story. That's dedication. So when I was 13 years old, I think my older cousin Sean, who's a very big guy in the basketball community, and the reason why I at a young age was very involved in the community, because he had Top Gun basketball, and it was one of the best men's league programs in the city. So I knew all the guys growing up. Like I knew Jamal McGlure when I was like, but we come from Trinidad too, and our dads are best friends. But so I was really very early in life exposed to the core of Toronto basketball. And then what ended up happening was when I got the DirecTV satellite, I got to see SportsCenter at a time when the rest of Canadians weren't. So this is in the heyday of SportsCenter with Stuart Scott and Kenny Mayne were two of the biggest stars in the States. And I love Kenny Mayne's sense of humor, and I love the fact that Stuart Scott was a black guy dressing up in a suit and talking about Michael Jordan nightly. Right. So I kind of fused both those characters, and I said, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like an entertainer and a broadcast journalist in sports, because I realized playing sports is really my cup of tea. Like, I love it, but I grew up with my dad Messiah.
Did you play basketball?
I did. I played basketball at first, but again, my cousin was a very intense guy, real street dude. Right. So it kind of was hard to deal with him, with his love for basketball. So I migrated to playing football. So I played for Scarborough Thunder. We won a ton of championships. My running back went to Harvard, broke every record, won a Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts. Wow. The guy who played corner across from me went to Ohio State and won a national championship with Maurice Claret. The free safety went to West Virginia. The running back went to San Jose State. So I had a great time playing some great football at Scarborough. And then I kind of got back into basketball later after I finished playing football because of concussions. But I always had that passion for ESPN and for their storytelling style, so I decided to go to Seneca College, do radio broadcast journalism. And then while I was there, I got an internship at Flow magazine, and that was kind of my first foray into everything that was cool about entertainment. And then from Flow, I was actually working at Foot Locker at the time, and then Cabby Richards had just gotten the TV show NBA XL, which was the first time you'd ever seen basketball.
And that's Cabby on the street.
That's Cabby. Our guy Cabby.
Yeah.
That was the first time you saw basketball being broadcast in that way, shape, or form.
Right.
So I remember seeing that show, and I was like, "Boy, I got to work on that show." And then, as luck would have it, he entered my Foot Locker on Queen Street one day, and I was like, "Dude, I want to do what you do."
Right.
So he gave me his email, I think, and I emailed him straight for 3 months and never heard from him. Right. And then I got an internship at Pound magazine, which is one of the there was Lounge and not Lounge. I forget what the name of their magazine was. It might have been Lounge, but Lounge was a clothing thing. Peace magazine. Okay. So there's Peace and there's Pound. So I was an intern at Pound, and I think Travis Belcourt, who at the time was the original producer of NBA XL, came over to our offices to buy a full-page ad space in the magazine. Okay. And I somehow got myself into that meeting and told him the story of me and Cabby, and the fact that Cabby had offered me an internship and I was going to come in. Right. So he's like, yeah, come to the studio. Get to the studio, show up. I'm sitting there waiting. Cabby shows up and he's like, I remember you. What are you doing here? I'm like, yo, dude, remember that internship you were going to get me?
Right.
right?
Wink.
And then, you know, he played along with the whole ruse. I stayed and I worked for free for about 3.5 years.
Wow.
Wow. You know, I was a bar back at Joker nightclub. I was a carny at CME in my spare time. And then I would just work for free in the industry, slept on my aunt's couch. I would just do anything. Wow. So there's like a 3.5 year period in my early 20s when all my friends were dating and hanging out and going to clubs and da-da-da. And I was working overnight shifts, sleeping in the morning on the couch, and then going back to edit and stuff like that. So that was kind of the front part of the journey. And then what happened was the rights to the NBA in Canada were moved from Sportsnet after the Grizzlies shut down to MLSE, who owned the Raptors. Right. And so they created NBA TV, Raptors TV at the time, which morphed to NBA TV. And they needed somebody to move over from Sportsnet with the show, but they had a non-compete clause. Right. So they couldn't take any of the people who were paid to produce the show. Right. So I, being the intern, was familiar with the show, was brought over to MLSE, and then when I was brought over to MLSE, I did the overnight, like I would log, write down the plays that the Raptors do on a piece of paper. That's how far back it was. Put in a binder, and the producers would go through the sheets of paper and look at the plays and write down the time code, and go to a tape deck, and put the tape in one thing, and then took the time code in, put another tape in, and you switch that. It's linear editing back in the day. This is not digital, this is before Final Cut. So we were doing linear editing, and then after that, I think the Maple Leafs needed a web reporter. Right. So I started out as a Toronto Maple Leafs web reporter, interviewing like Matt Sundin and you know, Carlo Koliakovo, and people I have no idea who they are, but I was just playing along, just used my energy. And then Toronto FC needed a web reporter. And then they started hiring girls as web reporters because they realized people would click on a video way faster than
if it's a female, yeah.
So I got moved to producer.
Okay.
But then I started doing some other on-camera stuff with NBA Excel called The Freshman.
Okay.
It's like Kevin Durant's rookie year, Nate Robinson's rookie year. Right. So I did that stuff, and then eventually I got better on camera, and then they offered me. Well, actually, I volunteered to do it. Was Raptors Today shows. Okay. They had axed the old host, so I was like, hey, look, you mean don't let Sherman Jones do it on their own? I can do it. Right. Started doing that, and then eventually I got good at it, I think, or I'm under the impression I did. Right. And then I got hired to be, I think at 29, I got hired to be the host of the Raptors pre and post game shows. So I thought I was pretty young. I wasn't even 30. I look around the league, there's no one that young doing it. Yeah. I got the gig and I got fired after 2 shows. So apparently I didn't do too well. Wow, okay. I wore sneakers on set. One of the guys was not very happy about that. Right. And I guess I wasn't as polished. Probably still not very polished of a journalist. I probably don't fit the typical journalist or host style in Canada especially. Right. It's very cookie cutter and formulaic. And I kind of try to be original and different and try to entertain as opposed to just, you know, provide, you know, stimulus that's been prepackaged, stuff like that. So got fired from pre and post, so still doing the online web producing. And then I decided, well, you know what? If I don't fit their style, I gotta make my own style. Right. So I took like basically all the money that's in my bank account and bought 2 DSLR cameras and started shooting videos from my living room. It was called Couch Life from the couch. You know, me and my boys getting together on after work. We watch like the Thursday night TNT games. Right. And I film all night with these 2 locked off cameras, very similar to what you're doing right now. Right. And then after everyone leaves at around midnight, 1 a.m. after the 10 p.m. game, I would just sit all night and edit those videos and throw them up on this website, this Vimeo page I had. And then eventually the producers at NBA TV, the same ones who fired me, asked me to come back and create a TV version of Couch Life.
So did they see that? And
yes.
They asked you to come back?
Yeah, I was sharing it on my Facebook and on my Twitter. And people were talking, and it was driving a little bit of conversation. Right. And they saw it, and at the time was when they were doing the transition from Raptors TV to NBA TV, and they didn't have a piece of content that was league. It was Canadian created that was talking about the whole league. Right. All the Canadian content. Well, there was a radio show, but there wasn't like a specific half-hour set. Right. And you know, CanCon rules in Canada, you need that. And so that provided us with the opportunity to create this show. Right. And then it's grown since. Right. And I guess that, in a nutshell, is how this whole
things have just been rolling.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing story.
Thank you.
And you know what I love about your story is a lot of kids in this generation, they think things happen overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't understand the trials and tribulations. So
there's a great quote that goes, "It's taken me my entire life to become an overnight success."
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Everything I put on look good on me. Look at my face. What can I say?
I'm not gonna attest to that one.
You know what I mean?
He has some good style. I give it to him. Okay. And who was the worst?
Yeah, I said Aaron.
Wait, hold on.
He said, I said Aaron.
No. He has more options because he can shop.
That's what I just
at
said.
the Baby Gap though. We don't get to shop there. That's more of an option.
Anyway, the worst.
So if I shop at Baby Gap, where he shop at then too?
Me? Why am I getting dragged into this?
If the heat comes on me, I gotta put on somebody else so he can get off me.
Camera
If the heat's on me, I gotta get the heat off me.
Okay, so back to the worst dress, please and thank you.
Who is the worst dress on this team?
I say AG
Is it AG?
or LK.
Alan says it's LK.
LK doesn't, but everything's kind of tight on him though.
Outfit yesterday.
He did have a rainbow outfit on.
It was all the different color reds.
He had the cranberry,
The
with orange juice pants on.
Yeah, I'm up.
You gonna take the mic?
All right, I think we're good.
Are we good? I didn't really have a worst. I haven't seen enough.
John Lucas. John Lucas.
Okay, so let's talk about Demar Derozan.
Okay.
Got traded recently.
Yeah.
I want to know from you, you've been following Demar since his rookie year. What is he like as a person?
Humble. More humble than most.
Okay.
Quiet. So quiet. A little emotional. More emotional than you think. You can see, I think one of the things that led to our understanding of that was how he reacts to things on social media. He never posts a lot on social media, but when he's hurt, he's hurt, and he will express it.
Right.
And, I mean, he's been a great guy. You guys got to factor in, like, you don't see this guy in clubs. You don't see him at parties. You don't see him drunk. You don't see him. He's a different kind of cat. And again, it's from the life experience he's had growing up in Compton. Right. And so I identify a lot with Demar and the type of man he is. I think he's a great guy, family first guy, and you know, he's humble, man. He's humble. It's hard to get a beat on him because he's so humble and he lays real low.
So what did you think of the trade?
That was brilliant.
Who won the trade?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah, there was no way to salvage the relationship between Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs, and they were probably they weren't the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Los Angeles Lakers weren't going to give them what they deemed the value for Kawhi because they knew the relationship was ruptured. Okay. So the fact that they got out of the situation with a second-tier superstar under contract for a couple of years is way better than having Kawhi Leonard walk a la Chris Bosh. Right. Or traded for nothing a la Vince Carter. Okay. And then on this side, for the Toronto Raptors, here's a situation where you have an opportunity to get a guy that you would have never had a shot at even landing a meeting with in free agency. Right. And it's only because he's injured that you have this opportunity. Right. You have coming a year, with 1 year on a contract, he's coming off an injury, so you don't know what you can see out of him, so you don't know what the market value is going to be for him. Plus you have his bird rights, which means you can pay him more, which puts you in a position of advantage. Right. And then you look at it, if he does walk away, you have to sign and trade and get assets back. Or walks away now because DeMar's contract was a 3-year contract. Kawhi leaves, you have Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, and Jonas Valanciunas all the way into the final years of their deals. Worth like 30, 20, and $17 million respectively. Right. You got over $100 million of cap space. And you think about it, Masai Ujiri came here to rebuild. Right. And when he tried to rebuild with that Kyle Lowry trade to the Knicks, all of a sudden this team turns it on to go to the best 5-year stretch they've ever had. Right. So he's never actually had a chance to do a rebuild. Right. Nick Nurse is the first coach Masai Ujiri's ever hired. But in case he was here. True. DeRozan's collateral pick. Right. So you think about it, you're finally getting a chance to see what Masai can do. Right. So there's a lot more options on the table as opposed to if he was stood pat with Kyle and DeMar. And who knows where the frustrations would have been for the fan base with another year of going to the playoffs. Now this time it's not LeBron, and you still couldn't get the job done because of the progress that Philly and Boston's made.
So let me ask you this, right? I'm a big LeBron fan, right? And I think Toronto has been a great team. They were the best in the East last year. If LeBron wasn't there last year, would they get to the finals?
The Raptors?
Yes. Man. So if they didn't have to play LeBron, let's say for whatever reason, let's just pretend the Cavs weren't in the playoffs, would they have beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals? And would they have made it to the NBA Finals?
I don't trust the mental makeup of that group from last year. I've seen too many instances of, and I think that's why the move was made. So I can't give them that. Right. I can't give them that, especially after you got to look at like what Indiana did to Cleveland, pushing them to 7 games within a couple possessions of winning. Yes. And you looked like you were out of sorts in that series. Yeah. So an Indiana team that's way lower than you in the rankings, a team that you did not struggle with in the regular season. Right. somehow has a better and tougher mental makeup in the playoffs than you do.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that worried you about that iteration of the Raptors was Kyle and DeMar's numbers went down every playoffs.
Yeah, they did.
Like not down each year, but down from what they did in the regular season.
Right.
And that's just not a recipe for success when you're trying to win a finals. I don't think you can go to a conference finals and have your two best players play worse than they do in the regular season and win. I'm just not under that impression. I haven't seen that happen in my experience as a basketball fan.
Right. So, Kawhi, will he stay?
Will he stay?
Have you met Kawhi? Has he come?
I've met Kawhi, not since he's come here.
Okay.
But I've met the guy, and I honestly think this is the type of city that can win Kawhi over.
Really?
I do. I mean, again, I'm a kid who moved here from Trinidad, New York, and I know, and Toronto was so much smaller when I got here. Right. I got here like 88, 89. So, knowing what the city is, knowing what it offers, I think there's a definite chance, especially with the Bird money as a kicker.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. I think there's a definite chance. And plus, we haven't had a player this good since Vince Lamar Carter.
Right.
And so I think that for those who are really invested in the game of basketball, especially in the corporate community, if they can ante up and get some kind of contracts and deals and advertising money towards Kawhi that are both, North American, but like specifically Canadian deals that open them up to a new revenue source, I think that would be crazy. So there's options. The thing about this deal is we knew what the ceiling was with DeMar DeRozan, whereas with the Kawhi Leonard deal, we don't know where the ceiling is.
Yeah.
The only problem is we're just not sure where the floor is either.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, things are heating up in Toronto right now. There's so many kids with NBA potential. So many kids going to the league. Talk about kind of the change. Like since you've gotten here and you've been covering the game for a long time, what is it like now? What is it like here in Toronto?
Well, you want to know the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference is in the 80s and the 90s, we had a lot of kids with no coaching.
Right.
Who were just raw athletes. Shouts out to Pierre Trudeau and opening up the border to a lot of different regions of the world. Because that's what's really constant. You think about the West Indian impact on Canada. Look at all the NBA players from Canada.
Yeah.
They're West Indian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're Jamaican,
Right.
they're Trini,
Right.
They're coming from, they're African,
Right.
they're Haitian.
Right.
So, like, when those borders opened up, it added a whole new gene pool to Canada.
Right.
And so we had freakish athletes. We had Phil Dixons. We had, Gary Durant's coming out, right? We had just a whole host of different types of athletes with new muscle fibers and stuff you wouldn't see in Canada. And then what happens is those guys go off and they've never been coached basketball. They go to the NCAA and they make all the mistakes in the world.
Right.
So the kicker here is all those guys, the Vidal Messiahs, the Mike Georges, the Tony McIntyres, who came back, learned from coaches' mistakes, and brought the knowledge back. So what you start to see in the late 90s and 2000s is the level of coaching in Canada step up. So you got the Ro Russells and the Vidal Messiahs coaching these kids from the West Indies with that new gene pool.
Right.
So it's an intersection of American knowledge mixed with West Indian genes.
Right.
Because remember, the Americans have all the basketball knowledge, but they've got the slave blood, the Baptists.
Right.
But the West Indians are a different breed.
Right.
So Canada has that. So now these West Indians know the game, right? These Eastern Europeans who come to Canada know the game. These Africans in Montreal, they know the game. Mm-hmm. And so a whole new gene pool is representing Canada. Right. And so now you've got high-level athletes who probably were track stars traditionally, coming from Trinidad and the Virgin Islands, same kids in Jamaica. But now it's not track they're playing. Right. You're getting guys playing basketball. You're getting guys playing hockey, right? You're getting the PK Subans and his brothers and those guys, right? So I think that's the biggest difference is coaching for the basketball side, at least, is guys like Vidal came back and took the knowledge base from the St. Bonaventures, from the University of Connecticut. Denham Brown is now coaching in the city, right? So you've got so many minds. So like we've had the physical, and now it's meeting the mental. And I think that's why you're seeing
the combination
the Shea Gilgeous Alexanders of the world sprout up, and the R.J. Barrett's his dad, who's working in Canada basketball, who's played for Canada basketball. That knowledge base.
Right. So where do you think it's going to go? Where do you think this thing is going to? Does it have a ceiling? do you think half the NBA one day will be Canadian? Like, what do you think?
I think, no, I don't think half the NBA is going to be Canadian, but I think Canada will, from here on in, especially Toronto, have a significant role in the story that America plays. I think Croatia,
right.
I think we're like a Croatia
right.
in that we're one of those basketball countries now. We may not be Spain in the United States, but we're definitely a Croatia, a little bit above Turkey. We're in the conversation now where when you talk about basketball, Canada's no longer an afterthought. Another thing, too, is that the Canadian National Basketball Program had to open its doors to black coaches. Mm-hmm. I think the National Basketball Program didn't like having black players traditionally. And it's not, and a lot of people think it's a certain type of racism, like they didn't want black basketball players. I think from what I've learned from private conversations and from understanding it was a lot of the white coaches who worked the team didn't feel like they could garner the respect and get those guys to listen, the inner city Toronto guys. Right. And so they chose to ride with guys from CIS programs and from out west who they knew they could build relationships with and who they knew would do the things they asked them. And there wouldn't be that cultural gap. Right. Because there was a huge cultural gap between, the older white men who had their own idea of how basketball should be played in Canada, and the younger guys who were playing in the States. A lot of these older guys, their idea of basketball was CIS basketball, OUA basketball. And that's what they were coaching, and that's where they were competing, and that's the style of basketball they wanted. These black kids from Toronto looking at the NBA, they're not looking at your CIS program. They're looking at your swing, pump fake, swing, triple offense. They want to cross a guy, they want to cram, right? They want to show out. Right. And so there was a disconnect between, and again, that's something that's going to happen a lot in Canada. Because the people on top don't look like the people on the bottom right now because of immigration. And you're going to see the same story being replayed in different walks of life, whether it be in the financial sector, whether it be in, whatever have you. Like Canada doesn't look like it used to. And so there's that battle of the top and the bottom.
Right. So who is Akil? Like when you're off the basketball floor, when you're not, broadcasting and shooting your show, who are you? What do you do?
It's weird. So I'm an extremist. I like to say that. When I'm home, it's dead silence. It's Buddhist mantras over my Sonos. It's incense and candlelight. It's 3-hour meditations. Wow. It's 2-hour sitting meditations. It's reading my books. So like my pendulum swings a lot. I think because I was trained very young to crave attention and to be a showman. Right. And so when you go into your private life, you can't keep that same level of energy. Mm-hmm. So when I go into my private life and I close my house door, it's about restoring myself so I can get myself back up to this level of amplitude that I'm usually at when I'm around people. So I'm kind of like two different people at times.
All right. So give us some dope NBA stories, some NBA stories that nobody would know, just you.
Now, if I told you those, the people that told me would know what I told you.
Okay, all right. So who's the dopest NBA guy you've ever hung out with? Who's the guy?
James Johnson. That's my dude. That is my spirit animal. I've never met someone who spoke more to the human being I was. Right. I've never met a guy who just wanted to let his freak flag fly and just be himself and live in his own skin. And the funny thing, too, is when you get involved in money, you get involved in corporations, I think we concede a certain amount of who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's why some people are attracted to me, is because even though I work for major corporations, I work with major brands, I don't hide any of who I am.
Yeah, you're still you.
I'm still me. I'm still very much myself, and I'm gonna do as I please. Right. Just as the way I please isn't messed up. Like some people like to do as they please, they're hurting other people's feelings. Whereas I think James is very similar in that, like, there's certain expectations of a professional basketball player, because they when money's involved, the people who are paying you money kind of take some of the juice out of life because they feel like you're beholden to them.
Right. They control you.
Yeah, and I think one thing James Johnson wasn't about to let the NBA do was control him.
Right. James Johnson with 4 to shoot, drives in, what a dunk! Here's James Johnson man! With an absolutely monstrous jam! Yeah!
All right, well, fantastic. Akil, thank you so much.
Thank you
for giving us your time.
Mad respect.
It was a great episode. And before we leave here, I just want you to give the kids a quick tip. So kids that are trying to be where you are in 20 years, what do they need to do? What do they need to do? What's the secret?
Become unreasonable. I think reason kills a lot of dreams. I think we reason things out. We use rationality, and humans aren't rational. We're emotional. So become unreasonable. I think my temper has cost me a lot, but I think it's also given me a lot. Like, I refuse to be unhappy.
Right.
I'm unreasonable if I'm unhappy.
Right.
And I refuse to ever settle, and I'm not going to work a 9 to 5. I'm not going to be in a relationship I don't want. I'm not going to do work I don't want. I'm completely unreasonable. And I think a lot of times we as we get older, we say we concede. We're like, okay, well, maybe I can't have the perfect relationship. Maybe I can't have the perfect job. Maybe I can't have the perfect person life. But I mean, if you become really unreasonable and accept nothing else except the perfect things for you, you eventually get it. And I can speak from experience, knowing that I was a homeless kid with no parents in the city of Toronto, and I got to do all of this.
Right.
And it was because I'm completely unreasonable. It made me hard to deal with at times. But it's given me something that I could go to bed every night with and be very happy and proud and pleased with.
All right. Well, there you have it, man. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to getting with you during the season.
All right, let's go.
All right. Basketball Live.
Basketball Live.
Mr. Basketball Live.